Hello friends, how are you today? Woo, it's been intense today. But I am getting to do this video now. Usually I try to do it earlier in the morning. But I was deep in the thralls of the energy at that time. Okay, well, we discussed the changes in this part of the chart in yesterday's video, so I wanted to focus in on these images since midnight. The first thing that just obviously jumped out was this red structure or image here. It goes from the lower hertz up and it breaks through about 8 hertz is about right here. So it just breaks through right there. Isn't it delightful to have the child in the background? I don't know where she's coming from, but it's kind of fun to have her voice there. Anyway, okay, so then what happens is this image moves. It looks like this is kind of an expanded, a second image here, but then you have this very distinct white, I don't want to call them a wave. It looks like almost like a measuring device, but this white rod, I guess, is a good way to say it. And this goes really all the way to the higher hertz. And it kind of grounds here, more on the right side than on the left, at 40 hertz. It's interesting, there's a lot of this, the way that this looks, there's a lot of this energy. See right down here, hopefully you'll be able to see it on the video. There's often, at times, little sort of rectangles of this checkerboard energy here, and it always reminds me in Minecraft. I just played it a little bit. It was fun. Anyway, it reminds me of the bedrock in Minecraft. Okay, so I call that the bedrock. But it's interesting because it kind of reaches up through the chart now. And I'm just thinking about that because I'm wondering if it reflects, well, anyway, we'll talk about that more in a second when I talk about energy. But let's stick with the key chart changes. The other interesting change here is that we started to get a little bit of light activity in the higher hertz again. Now, we had this going on for weeks, from December 7th until about maybe, 3 to 5 days ago, until about the new moon, which is on February 11th. But right now we have a little bit of lighting up here, although it hasn't gone into the gamma. Now, in yesterday's video, or maybe it was the day before, I kept mixing up vertical and horizontal. I don't know what. Now, I think that for some reason. But what it caused me to do is think about focusing more on the actual vertical lines. And the vertical lines are going into through the high hertz now. And I think that's very interesting. The horizontal lines are just staying at about in the mid to high 30s right here. But the top of the chart right here is 40. And the vertical lines, interestingly, are going all the way up there. And yeah, it's just really interesting. We have not been seeing this pattern for a while. And not only are the vertical lines reaching to 40 hertz, but we're having this interesting checkerboard pattern down here. It's really quite fascinating. I'll talk about that more when I talk about the energy in a few minutes. After the 2 rods of energy, then you have all of this reddish activity on the chart. It's very, very red. It's like a fire engine red here, these colors. Mixed with the burnt oranges and the darker colors, but the fire engine red really dominates. And then you have another, it's not quite a rod, it's almost 2 lines. And here's what was interesting about this. This is a straight line. Okay, let me see did this match it, or is it no, this is it. Yeah, this did match it. Okay, so what you can see here is that the white energy, it appears to come down in 2 lines, okay? But it comes down, isn't this fascinating? It's at an angle. Now this, let's just count the pixels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here. And then at the top, let's count right here. 1, 2. Da, 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 da. Yeah. You see that? See how it goes at an angle. Here, that's right there is where it shifts. And now let's follow this all the way down and see what happens. It turns bright green, which is healing. We get another railroad track-ish kind of image here. Healing, only partial. And down to 40 hertz. Clear to blue. Okay, and you've got the big squares. So it's not, isn't that interesting here? You've got big squares. And wow, I'm having some thoughts on this. The hidden influences. That's what I feel here. Okay, so all the activity that goes on up here is really more vertical. That's the other really interesting thing. The limit activity that's going on in a horizontal fashion, and yes, I'm remembering what is horizontal and what is not today. It's very red, and that's interesting because we don't, we've talked about this, but you don't normally see a lot of red here or red images like this one. Now, there's one other thing that I want to point out, maybe two. The first is there's a predominance of some of the gray energy here on the chart. It's here, and then it's here. There might be a couple of other places. And then we have this interesting image here that's almost in a circular, it almost looks a little like a head with two eyes, okay? So, and then there's a gray line extending down from it. Okay, now let's go over the black charts. White and yellow is peaking, while red and green are low. Now, if you look at the images with your eyes, you can't tell that. You have to look on the right here, and you see we're only going up to 4 and 6 in the red and green, but the white is up to 23 and the yellow is up to 24. Once again, white and yellow are mirroring each other, and yellow is extending to higher ranges. Now, the 24 in the yellow is the day before, but I still think that's valid because it's like it hit that level, then the white hit that level twice. It's not a competing, it's almost a competing going on, it's felt like. This is interesting, the qualities. Now, the amplitude is the strength of the frequency, the energy of the frequency that creates the resonance. And then the quality is the clearness and the clarity. And what's really interesting here is how low the green has been. Now we're mostly below 9 and even down to 8, 7, 8 here. This to me is very interesting. The numbers in white, yellow, they're in the low to mid-range teens, and that's not really remarkable. Even red is about at 10, but it's remarkable to me that the green is lower, and this is why. It's like the clarity of the human energy, which in my view is represented by the green, is either low or hidden at this time. The amplitudes and the quality of what's going on here, it's another indication to me that there are shadow elements at play, which we saw on the chart yesterday. Now here, this is really interesting. And it's like it's sucking down, okay? All of them pulled down together, but that was really interesting how they all just went whomp to the lower end of the frequency ranges together at the same time. And in some cases, you are at the very low end of the frequency ranges, like 12.2 in the yellow, 24.1. I mean, the green does go into the high 23s, but it's still towards the very low end of its usual range. What it looks like to me here is a couple of influences going on. These right here look like measuring devices. There actually was a picture of a caliper in the chart with the white rabbit. I had meant to talk about that and I didn't. So about 3 to 4 days ago, we had a caliper, a measuring device in the chart. And now we have this almost like an architectural compass. And I use those a lot because I do drawing. I use the architectural compass a lot. And that's what it looks like to me here. Here's the handles and then, the extended legs of the compass. The top of the compass isn't visible. The other thing that's present here is this image here looked to me like a Kachina, okay? So you've got like the typical square head of the Kachina and then almost like a strange eye and a nose. And the Kachinas have very unusual faces. Okay, and there's even sort of some headdress going out to the left, to the top, and even maybe to the right here from the Kachina. It has a line across by where its legs are. Now, I couldn't find any Kachinas that have this lower line here in the costume, but that doesn't mean that that's not possible. I'll do some more research as I go on. But this also is reminiscent of a cross with 2 bars, and I saw that in yesterday's chart, although I didn't talk about it at the time. But the cross with 2 bars, one of the key images in that chart led down to a cross with 2 bars. There's a specific name for that kind of cross, and it goes all the way back to the Middle Ages or earlier. And interestingly, it was used in the Crusades, and it was used in some of the heraldic imagery of Hungary. And then it's also associated with images from France. And we recently had, what I felt like was the Joan of Arc energy, the valor and victory that she represents, and the achieving victory with a valor that flows through the human being is connected with God, the Most High, the creator of the universe. So what happens here is it's almost like the Kachina moves forward and is behind the architectural compass and is using this measuring device. And it's interesting because the Kachina is red. I don't think that it's a bad thing here, okay? Because the red represents simply from the shadow side of our nature strength, okay? And we recently had the energy of Quetzalcoatl in the chart. I talked about that quite a bit a couple, 2, 3, 4 videos ago. And this Kachina is full of red. And, some of the big headdresses of the Kachinas are actually Kachinas representing the sun. The Kachina is the nature spirits of the Hopi. The Hopi use Kachina dolls to represent the various nature forces in their lives, and they viewed these as spiritual forces. And they were allies to the Hopi people, the American Indians that lived in around current day southwest of the United States, around Arizona, New Mexico, etc. The Hopi's Kachina were allies for counsel and education of the human beings on Earth. And to me, it's like the natural forces here, the Kachina representing maybe the sun, is going forth and taking a measure of the energies on Earth all through the range of the hertz of the Schumann Resonance, which is also coincidentally the hertz range of the human brainwave. And there's a lot of activity going on here as they measure. And it almost looks to me like the energy is going through the dimensions here in the measuring process. Very, very deep. Now, it's not a depth to a lower dimension. It's almost like a depth of soul connection, like assessing the soul embodiment of the human beings on Earth, like the extent to which, like, where is that right now? That's what I'm seeing here, because the bedrock to me has always represented, it always shows up in the high hertz, and the high hertz of the chart represents the brainwave levels at which human beings experience gamma brainwaves, which is our connection with the spiritual. And that's here, okay? Here between 36 and 40 on the chart. 38 to 42 is gamma. But I think that there's kind of an overlap at the edges from the material that I've read. I've gotten that impression. They don't know maybe exactly where the layers of these brainwaves start and end. That's my impression from reading the material. But anyway, so basically these building blocks, okay, are usually in the higher brainwaves, but now they're extending into lower hertz. And that's why I'm saying that I feel that there are things being represented on the chart that are not scientifically measurable, and that's what's going on here. As all of this like blue light comes down and connects at 40 hertz. It's like a transmission of the soul, right? Back and forth with the soul, with the spiritual, as human beings perceive it from the human form, from 38 to 42 hertz. So that gets us to this part. Now, it's interesting. I'm going to move this because I just wanted to show you that there was a slant there. Anyway, so it's interesting because you have this little head here. What I see here is, and he has something behind him, kind of mirroring in a way the Kachina. This looks like, okay, it doesn't look human. You know what it looks like? I'll just come out and say it. It looks like one of the grays. And it's interesting because there has been, over the last 2 weeks at least, or longer, there's been a lot of gray energy in the chart. And I've been thinking about what am I going to say about this when I do say it. But it looks like one of the grays holding a rod here of their advanced technology and sort of stirring the ethers, doesn't it? And takes a measurement as well. You know, is this force friendly or is it not friendly? Is it beneficial or is it not beneficial? Did it assist us with technology or did it not assist us with technology? I really don't know. And that part of our history is hidden from us. But what I can say is simply what I've had personal experience with. And to my knowledge, this force is present among us and is present among us. Gee, I just don't know how to assess it. But what I do know is that I've interacted with it many times. And it has been simple interactions, just like you would have with other human beings. And I accept that. I accept that this force is present here. Many of these energies actually look like human beings, and you might interact with them day to day and not even know. I've come to be able to see it, and now what I do is I will look at the person, and in my mind, because this force is telepathic, I will say, I understand who you are, and that's okay. You can continue to interact with me in your function as a quote-unquote human being, but I acknowledge who you really are. Now, my human friends, whatever other energies you carry who are listening, let me say this. There's no need for fear here. When we embody love, we live our life and we have the connection within our heart and soul that is unique in some ways to human beings. This is all we need. This that guides us. And let me say this. Although some of our inventions in the past decades may have been from sources that were human plus, what I want to tell you is that the creating that we are capable of when we are connected with our soul, represented, sometimes for me it's represented by the sun, okay? The sun. The creations that we will be doing from our human soul-connected selves will be far beyond and far greater than anything this planet has seen so far and since long, long ago.